Hi, everyone. I am Kiana Baker, the Community Engagement Director at Amplify Louisville, and we are so excited to bring you all a pitch practice workshop today. So, as we all know, pitching can be just so nerve wracking. And your content is extremely important, of course, but the way that you present that content and presenting that content effectively is just as important as the content itself. And we are so excited to be hosting a workshop about just that, how to effectively present content. Today, we have Ali Trutman here with us. She is the president and CEO of Wicked Sheets. I will let her tell you all of her awesomeness when I bring her up, but we're so excited to have her, and she is no stranger to pitching, guys. Like, she has done this 1,000 times, and that's why she is the perfect person to teach you all how she has learned to effectively present content as well. Because pitching is different than any other type of public speaking. So, knowing how to do that and do it well is so important along your entrepreneurial journey. So I'm going to stop rambling and bring up Allie to join us. All right, Allie. So I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to exit myself from here, but make sure that you have your pen and paper so you can take notes, you all, because you do not want to miss anything that she has to say.
All right. Thank you so much, Kiana. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today. I love talking about pitching. I love pitching about pitching. I'm going to give you guys a little presentation. I put together like 14 slides of what I think has been very successful for me in the past 13 years that I've been in business. A lot of times people are like, why is this person good at this talk? And as Kiana mentioned, I've pitched thousands of times. And one of the most important things that I'm going to talk to you about is knowing your audience and crafting your pitch so that it matches your audience. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, I started my company 13 years ago, and I did the bootstrap and friends and family round. So I had to learn how to be very conversational and frank with my friends and family. And then I pitched to groups of angel investors when I did my next two rounds. I've pitched to venture capitalist firms. And actually, it's so funny. I'm getting ready to do my first healthcare B2B pitch on Friday. So I'm having to craft a very different style of pitch even this week. Even though I've been doing this for so long, it's very, very important to know your audience. So if you guys have questions, I've told the Amplify team they are welcome to share my email address with you guys. So that you can ask me, like, hey, I'm going to pitch this angel group, or I'm going to pitch this guy who has a lot of money in town, but he's not really an angel and he kind of acts like a venture capitalist. How do I approach him? What do I need to know? What are those key pointers? So, again, please reach out if you have any questions. I think we'll have a time at the end of the presentation for you to ask me any questions, but I'm just going to jump right into what I call the Ali Trutman School of Sweat. I have been doing a lot of different seminars, pitching, value proposition, customer discovery, and all that stuff. I'm probably going to publish a blog or a book or something like that for the Ali Trutman School of Sweat. So forgive my branding, but I absolutely love doing this. So I had to have a little fun with it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. All right. So this is what I said, the Ali Trutman School of Sweat, Mastering the Art of the Pitch. So I love this little tagline, the beginner's guide to selling yourself in a pitch, because you may think that you're selling your product or idea, but the first misnomer that you have to get out of your head is that you are actually selling yourself. Any investor who is willing to hear your pitch, look at your slide deck, whatever, is basically investing in you. In Kentucky, I know a lot of you guys are probably from Kentucky, but those that are visitors from other accelerator programs, we say you're betting on the jockey, not on the horse a lot here in Kentucky. And that's the same thing that goes for pitching. So all of my investors, they may have loved the idea that I had for Wicked Sheets, in 2008, but really they were watching me, how I carried myself, the level of acuity that I had in social settings, the level of acuity that I had in business, and how I could basically face any sort of problem that was heading my way. They didn't have necessarily any doubts about the product itself, but my ability to sell it. And they wanted me to pass the first test, which was selling myself. So that's really important. I want you guys to get yourselves in that frame of mind that you are selling yourself in whatever pitch you are doing, regardless of the business or service or product that you're selling or pitching to this entrepreneur. So there are 5 really key important points that I'm going to cover with you guys today. The first, like I mentioned before, is knowing your audience, whether that's a friend or family member you're going to ask for money, a mentor that you're going to pitch to say, hey, I really would love for you to be on my board, on my advisory board. If you're pitching to a venture capitalist, if you're pitching to a private equity group, if you're pitching to someone, like I said, that has a lot of money, but doesn't necessarily fall into one of those categories, it's going to be really important for you to know your audience so that you can craft your pitch to the style that they are most comfortable in. You need to become a storyteller, which I'll get into that in a second, to be able to define your value proposition. And if any of you guys are already in an accelerator program like Render or just finished Launch It, have done Kaufman, you have learned what your value proposition is. But I'm going to review that because you have to very succinctly be able to tell that in your pitch. The other really important part is don't be a robot. I'll give examples from my life on that point. And finally, the ask for what you want. Very, very important piece. If you don't ask for what you want, the investor has no idea what you want. They have no idea what you need. They're not mind readers. So you need to say, I'm asking for X number of capital dollars. I'm asking for your mentorship. I'm asking for a sale right now. So I'm going to go through those, but I'm going to start right here. So this is a picture of me when I was on QVC 3 years ago. So I always like to start with this when I talk about pitches because I did probably one of the most important pitches of my life in order to get my slot on QVC. And if you have met me before, you know that my business is all about sweat. So I have hyperhidrosis. I sell bed sheets for sweaty people. Not always the easiest thing to talk about. So I've tried to figure out how to make sweat funny and sweat sexy so that people can make it more relatable to them, because sometimes people get really uncomfortable about that. If you are someone that's selling a product that is a tech product that the audience you're selling it to isn't super comfortable or familiar with, you might want to use either humor or storytelling in order to get them to feel more comfortable. So I just want to tell you guys the brief pitch of my life story so you guys can understand how I, even though I've been doing this for 13 years, still get extraordinarily nervous. So I entered this pitch competition in Silicon Valley. It was called American Dreams Entrepreneur Series. It was being put on by the Home Shopping Network, and Randy Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg's sister, was the person who I was going to have to pitch to. So already intimidation factor through the roof. Your brother, the founder of Facebook and Meta and whatever, is a bazillionaire. You have a lot of money and have been quite successful yourself. And I'm trying to get on a spot that is going to be in front of millions of television viewers. And most of them were my target audience. I sell primarily to folks with menopause, going through menopause, cancer, diabetes, other health conditions that might elicit sweating at night. So I had to take these 2 huge components, talk to the audience, and then talk to this very brilliant, talented, wealthy woman. So I fly myself out to Silicon Valley, get a hotel, practice in the mirror, stay in my hotel room, read a bunch so that my language and acuity is really top notch. Don't drink so that I am like very clear headed and clear spoken when I'm getting ready to pitch. So I show up to this place called Xfinity where the pitch competition was going on. And you show up and you draw a straw for what cohort and what number you're going. Well, I drew the 5th straw in the last cohort of the day out of 5 pitchers. So I was already knowing my audience was going to be exhausted, They probably had already picked out the people that they liked, and I needed to nail this pitch. And I walked back into Xfinity when it's my turn to go. And I'm looking around the room and I see a woman in Christian Louboutin shoes, and she's got a tea that is like a dietary supplement. There's a guy who has a light up toilet seat. There's another guy who is slinging barbecue sauce that he's basically selling out of the back of his car. There's another gal who has like little trinkets, but she's very, very early in the stage of the game. And then there's me, sweaty bed sheets girl. And I was so nervous, and I wore a navy shirt because I knew I was going to be sweaty. And I was just like, all right, if I can't beat these people, then I shouldn't be doing this, because I know that my bed sheet company that is already producing revenue can beat a meal supplement and Christian Louboutin shoes. I mean, I wish I could do the impersonation for you guys. It was amazing. And a light up toilet seat. Then I should just quit my day job altogether. So got myself together, made sure that my outfit was on point, and I walked in, and everything that I had practiced completely escaped my head. And I'm sure this has happened to you guys. It is sometimes very impossible to let the nerves stay out. So what did I do? I became extraordinarily sweaty. And my friends made this meme of me because they knew when I was on QVC, the same thing was probably going to happen. I got so sweaty, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to own it. So I started talking about who I was, that I sweat, where I was from. I knew that they were exhausted. I started telling some jokes about night sweats and hot flashes, and became really relatable to what Miss Randy was going to go through in a couple of years as she goes into menopause. And then started talking about how well I know my audience, which would be the Home Shopping Network or QVC audience. So needless to say, I ended up winning the pitch competition, and I got myself a spot on Home Shopping Network, which then became QVC, and pitched. I think I did 5 or 6 appearances on QVC, and it was the best time of my life. But even after all of these 13 years of doing pitches, sometimes your nerves just step in. So if you know your audience, then you can cater to what it is they like, or be really, really relatable. So this goes into my first lesson. Who is your audience? The art of matching your messaging with the one who writes the checks, or in my case, the one who signs the document that says you get to go on Home Shopping Network and QVC. Okay. So how do you do that? It's essential that you become your audience's stalker. I'm talking like you need to know who they are, what they care about, like their social causes. If they have a foundation and they are really interested in adoption, you should figure out a way to mention that in one of your pitches, not in an evil or manipulative way, in an altruistic way, or ask them questions about what they're interested in and why they're interested in adoption, things like that. But their social cause is really, really important, especially in today's day and age. You should know what makes them laugh. So I knew that jokes about sweat and night sweats and her impending entrance into menopause would probably make her sweat. I looked up her age. I looked up the places that she goes and the things that she does. She loves Broadway, so theatrics speak to her. And then what they typically invest in. So she was a really big supporter of female entrepreneurs, and she loved consumer product goods. So if you're pitching to an angel group or a venture firm, I'm so sorry, my phone just started ringing. You need to know exactly what they invest in, because if it doesn't match what they typically write checks for, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle already. So do your research. Almost every single venture group or capital funding source has a website, or at least has some sort of information that says, here's what we like to invest in: consumer product goods, healthcare, biotech, engineering, SaaS companies. You need to take the time to do that research. So here are a couple different types of audiences for you guys. And I love this meme. It's the girl from Wedding Crashers. She's like, I will find you. You do need to become the stalker and find out everything about either these friends and family groups, the angel groups, the super angel groups, the venture capitalists, or the private equity. Each of them not only have a different type of style pitch that they like, but they also have a different check size. So I wrote it in order of check size from smallest to largest. This is typically how it goes. Your friends and family round is probably a couple $1,000s to get you started here or there. Maybe some seed money. Maybe you have a wealthy uncle who is doing some estate planning and he is okay to write you a $100,000 check. But that typically doesn't happen until you get into that angel or super angel round. Angel investors are probably comfortable writing a $10,000 to $25,000 check, depending on if there's a lead investor, if somebody else is in the round already, if they have a group that's joining them. Super angels are probably a little bit higher, up to like the $100,000, $150,000 range. And then venture capitalists kind of go from, anywhere from $250,000 to a couple $1,000,000. And then private equity will likely not invest in you, but maybe buy your company. So you are going to have to do the research and figure out, based on the check size that they're writing, how aggressive does your pitch need to be? And you really should take the time to investigate and take notes on what they typically invest in and what their social concerns and cares are, so that you can cater your messaging to meet those needs. And again, come from an altruistic place. They will see right through the salesmanship of, oh, I'm interested in that as well. Even if your social causes don't match, if you do have a social passion in your business, tell them about that, because it's likely going to resonate with them, and they'll feel that empathetic social goodness that you're bringing to the table. So the next one is becoming a storyteller. So these investors or investor types have heard thousands and thousands of pitches. So the most important thing for you to do is know your story personally, inside and out, and develop an investor or an audience hook. So I love the hook. The hook is the first couple of minutes getting someone to fall in love with you or your style. Okay. So it's essential to understand your unique value proposition, deliver it in a way that relates to your audience so they want more. Keep them coming back to you. There are 3 types of hooks that are really important. The first one is one of my favorites, and this is typically my go-to. We call this the tug at the old heartstrings. So when I started my company, I would tell people of my own issues with night sweats. And this actually related with a lot of people in the audience. I would ask the question, does anybody else sweat in here? Does anybody else have night sweats? Well, let me tell you, when I had surgery and was waking up drenched in sweat, I was getting no sleep. And everyone knows that sleep is the root of all success in life, right? Waking up, being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and being able to perform. Well, when I wasn't sleeping because of my night sweats, my emotional health suffered, my physical health suffered for my rehabilitation, and I just didn't feel like myself. I became really, really relatable to the audience when I started telling this tug at the heartstrings type story. And other people do the same. I heard Jessica from Othello, who just won the Venture Sharks pitch competition. She told the story of how her mom was diagnosed with cancer. And it became so emotional and relatable for the audience. You could tell that the entire audience's demeanor changed, and they wanted to know how Jessica was going to change basically the delivery of services for those going through cancer treatment, because so many people could relate to that. So if you have a tug at the heartstrings type of story, this is going to be a really good way for you to get your audience hooked and keep them coming back for more. They want to hear the end of the story, just like you want to watch the end of a movie. The next one is something that I go to when I'm talking about healthcare. And if you have a very large audience or target market rather, if you have a very large target market, the data wow might be something you want to look into. So let's say your product or service is going to capture 80% of the market share. That is a pretty big data wow. Let's say you have 100 million people in your target audience and your service addressable market is 40% of that. That's also a pretty big data wow. What are those staggering statistics that you can say right out of the gate that's going to make an investor or someone you're pitching to say, okay, that's interesting. I want to hear more. How is your product or service going to get you to make me millions of dollars, right? Give me that data wow so that I want to hear more. And then I want to hear more about your product or service and how we're going to get to that number. So the tug, the data wow, or if you are like me in that QVC pitch, I was sweating, I couldn't help myself. I had forgotten everything that I was supposed to be saying, and I went straight up relatable Ron on them. I went to the conversationalist that said, you know what? I'm going to level with you because you don't tell them that you forgot what your notes were or anything like that, but you can tell that they are exhausted. You could tell that maybe they've lost interest, and you just become relatable. You become the relatable Ron, the conversationalist, and you ask them questions, and then you start just vibing back and forth in a conversational manner, not forgetting that you're doing a pitch because you're still going to make an ask at the end, but you're gathering data the whole time, and you want to make them feel like they're investing in their friend or their son or their daughter, and make them feel that they can relate to you, and that builds trust and confidence in what you're selling. So those are the 3 types of hooks. People will probably argue with that, but those are the most successful in my life, and I am notorious for going for the tug. All right, the next and probably most important piece is something you've been working on since you decided to start a business. It's your value or your value proposition. So this is the art of matching the product benefits with the consumer's needs. You have to understand that unique value proposition so you can facilitate a satisfying transaction. And the key word here is you. What are you doing that's different that makes your product or service better, more exciting, improves by way of innovation, and is going to keep your customer wanting to come back and buy your product or service over and over and over again? Okay, so here's a little review on value proposition. So you have your marketplace offerings, you have what your customer needs, and you have what you are providing. That, in this Venn diagram, that center focal point is your value proposition. How can my product or service be better, faster, stronger than anything else that's out there on the market? How can what I do in the sheets business beat cotton or linen or bamboo? How can I wick away more sweat than the ShamWow? How can I keep someone cooler or drier than a fan or a chili pad? Those are actually real. If you don't know what that is, you should look up chili pad. It's this really cool, innovative, like ice pack bed layer that you can put under your fitted sheet. It's pretty awesome. But anyway, you have to be able to answer how your product or service is going to be better, faster, or stronger than anything else that's on the market. And you have to be able to say it in a very succinct and clear way. So I would say, hi, I sell Wicked Sheets. They wick away 6 times more moisture and dry 4 times faster than any traditional bedding that's on the market right now. Take your cotton and throw them away. I'm going to keep you cool and dry all night long. Sleep wicked, right? So in 3 sentences, you just got what I was doing. You understood my product. And I said, I'm beating cotton. I'm beating my competition right here and now. So understanding your value proposition and being able to say that in a succinct and clear way, almost like your elevator pitch, that 30-second pitch is going to be wildly important to keeping your investor engaged after you've hooked him. Okay. And I'm using him as the universal, after you've hooked them, after you've hooked her, after you've hooked the audience. So make sure that you can explain your value proposition in a clear and succinct way. All right. Being able to talk about numbers without being a robot. So this goes back to the statement about don't be a robot. Why does this business make sense, and how will you make money, or how will you make me money, is what the investor is saying. So I call this the art of being confident, talking about numbers, even when you're not. So I, by nature, am an extrovert. I'm a creative type. I love to design. I love the marketing and sales aspect of business. Numbers, not my forte. If you're like me, you've been blessed with the gift of gab, not the gift of calculations and quick calculations. So any sophisticated investor is going to ask how the business is going to be sustainable, how it's going to make money, how it's going to generate a return on their investment. And it is essential for you to answer with confidence no matter what. Even if you have to say to them, you know what, I'm not sure on that, I can get back to you. You absolutely still have to be very quick with your responses here, because again, the investor is investing in you and your acuity and your speed and delivery and how confident they are in your ability to deliver said product or service to the marketplace. Okay. So when I say don't be a robot, I mean, don't read off your slides if you can help it, because investors want to be watching you. If they're watching your slides the whole time, they're already disinterested. They can read the numbers in a financial or a follow up email or something like that. You need to sell them in your pitch. So, your best bet is for you yourself to prepare a very short, brief slideshow that has maybe 10 slides or less, and don't read from it, and be very, very clear on your slides. Don't write a paragraph on each one. The snapshots that you want them to take away from what's on that slide, because it's just a reiteration of what you're saying verbally. All right. When they get to this section of your slide presentation, which is usually the 6th or 7th slide, is the financials. You've already done the what I'm selling, what's my value proposition, who's my audience, or just take a quick glance and then try and glaze over it quickly. There, though, again, going back to that sophisticated investor, they're gonna want to know this, but you can defer it to a later moment when you're getting back to that relatable Ron or conversational conversation, and say, I know these, I'm going to get back to you, or let me have my CFO or my business partner talk to you about the numbers. I'm more of a salesperson, or I'm the idea guy. People are going to appreciate that honesty more so than if you're standing there spitting out numbers like a robot and don't have any personality while you're talking about it. A lot of people freeze here, but just know that you're not being totally judged. They just want to know that you have the ability to find someone that can help you. As an entrepreneur, you're going to wear a ton of hats, but you are not expected to know every single thing in your business or be a master at every single thing in your business. It's just near impossible. If that's how entrepreneurs worked, we would never have co-founders, right? Or we'd never have advisory boards or boards of directors helping us. So it's really important to remember who you are and be your true self, and just say, without being a robot, you know what, I don't know this right now, or I will have somebody get back to you, or I will have one of my co-founders or my partner or whatever talk to you about the numbers afterwards. It's vital to have it in your slide deck, but if you can't speak to it, don't turn into a robot. That'll turn them off very, very quickly. All right. The final most important part before you end your pitch is ask yourself, what do you want? What are you asking these investors for? What is the purpose of the pitch? Is it to practice? Okay, well then you just want feedback. Is it to actually get money? All right, well then I'm seeking capital. Is it that I always say, like, do you just want a hug? Do you just need support? Do you need an advisory board member? Whatever that is, you have to ask for it. So this is what I call the art of making the ask. And a lot of people are not good at this. Even if you just want someone to buy your product so that they can give you feedback, you oftentimes have to ask for it. So before I go on to that next slide, I do want you to pay certain attention to the small print here. It says, at the end of every good presentation, yes, you should have a contact slide. Your slide deck absolutely always should have a contact slide on the last slide. So thank you for your time. Here's my contact information. One of the largest investor complaints is that people send them a presentation and they look at it, and at the end of it, there's no way to get in touch with them. Yeah, you might have their email address, but investors want you to make it really easy for them. So put your contact information in there, especially if someone else is showing them this presentation. Then they can take a quick screenshot and send it to somebody else. They can take a picture of it with their phone, but make sure you have a contact slide on there. As your final slide. Somewhere in like the 9th or 10th slide should be your contact slide. And then above all, you should always make the ask. So my words of wisdom here are always close by asking for what you want. Is it money? Is it a sale? Is it a hug? If you don't ask, you're never going to get what it is that you need or what it is that you came here for. So make the ask. At Venture Connectors this week, I applauded the folks who pitched. Simba, they made a great presentation, and he made an ask at the end. And then our moderator, Kayla, made an ask of our panelists in our DEI panel. She said, what can we as Venture Connectors do for you? How can we help your business, or how can we help you personally? And I think everyone is getting better or more comfortable doing it, but you got to keep practicing. You got to keep asking for what you want, because these people aren't mind readers, and they're getting asked for stuff all the time. So what makes you different from the rest of them? Well, if you do it with sentimentality, if you do it with genuity, if you do it with vigor, that's going to stand out to them. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my sharing here. Go back here and open it up to any questions. I know it's 12:32, so we have plenty of time. Open it up to any questions that anybody has, but I can also go back into any of those slides and talk specifically about the audience types, the check sizes, some other pitches that I have done. The one I'm getting ready to do on Friday is a healthcare pitch, and it's a B2B play. So what I did in order to prepare for that was I reached out directly to one of the guys that works for this group that I'm pitching to. And I said, what are these women experts in? And I wanted to make sure that my pitch was either going to be financially minded, or my pitch was going to be one that was all about care and how my product or service can help their residents and help their nursing care staff have an easier time when they use my product. So I went on their website. I researched the company. I went on LinkedIn. I researched each of the women so that I understood, age range. Is this product or service going to speak to them because of something that their parents are going through, something that they're going through, something that they've lived through personally? Says I was trying to figure out what my hook is going to be. And then I wanted to know, if I talk about money, are they going to be like, we have no idea, we don't write the checks? Or are they going to be really interested in how this product or service is going to help their business be better, or their nursing care staff take better care of their residents? So I got my answer. Sure enough, I'm really glad I asked. They are not financially minded people. So already I changed my slide deck, and I modified it, and it does not include COGS, doesn't include my cost of goods, right? It does not include my budget at all, does not include the price of what I'm selling them. So I had to modify my slide deck. And then when I learned that they were really all about care, I went over to some other folks who are in the care field and said, all right, here's what I understand about it. Make sure I understand the jargon or buzzwords that these residents or nurses use in their facility. Catered my pitch to make sure that the words match directly what they're used to hearing. So I'm talking about incontinence right now with this particular group, and I wanted to make sure, do they call it incontinence? Do they call it a moisture event? Do they call it a spill? Do they call it an evacuation? All of those things are going to be really important, because if I come in speaking Chinese and they speak Japanese, we're going to have a really hard time connecting in the meeting. And that's how I basically prepare for the language that goes in my slides. And then I have to train myself a couple days before. I'm using this phrase with this particular group because I want them to make sure that I understand clearly their residents' needs, and what I'm providing for them matches their residents' needs, so I can satisfy their consumer need. Then I wanted to look at, what are their problems? What are the biggest problems that they have in this market, and how can my product or service fit it? So I went straight back to value proposition. What are they doing right now in these residents' homes to address incontinence, to address changing sheets, to address anything that could be mildly irritating to the nursing care staff that's going in? So I needed to understand, what are the problems that take time, that cost you guys money, that increase your rates of turnover? And you need to investigate every single problem that this company might have, because you want to be standing there and say, I'm Allie and I've got the solution for you. One of my favorite things is, I don't know if you guys remember a guy that would open his coat jacket, and he'd have like 100 different types of gadgets or things on in his coat pocket. He's like, what do you need? I got cigarettes, I got a lighter, I got batteries, I got a watch, I got this and this and this. You don't want to necessarily be everything for everybody, but you want to know all of their problems and at least be able to offer some sort of solution. So when you open your coat jacket and they look inside, they want to know, ooh, she's got something I need or I want, and she understands what I need and want. So defining very clearly and succinctly what that value proposition is going to be huge for me on Friday. So, and that brings me back to, I've been preparing for this pitch for 2 solid weeks. I have been researching, I've been tweaking my slides, I've been looking at like all the things that they're using in their current residence right now, because that's how important each and every single pitch should be. And that's how important every single pitch should be treated. If you're meeting with somebody, yeah, you can use the slides over and over again, but you might want to tweak them, cater to the market that you're talking to so that it doesn't get mundane and that they really feel special while you're doing that. And then the other thing is, I know I only have 45 minutes with this group. So I need to make sure I am very, very succinct, and I do a brief getting to know you. What's my hook? I'm going to tell them about how my grandmother suffered from incontinence in her nursing facility. And that's why I got interested and wanted to create this problem or create this solution to solve the problem of incontinence care in assisted living homes. So I'm going for the tug, right? Even though I could probably use the data wow, because there are a lot of incontinence patients, I think knowing these women, I'm going to go with the tug, because I think that that's going to be really, really relatable and speak to their hearts, because they care so much about their patients. So I've done this exact same exercise, and I've been preparing for it for 2 solid weeks. And go back to, I've been pitching 13 years and selling this product for 13 years, but I still have to tweak it. And things change and your audience changes, and you really need to be prepared for whatever questions they're going to ask. So I've basically started doing homework and want to become the master of that pitch, right? So yeah, that's where I'm at. Healthcare B2B is going to be a very different pitch, because I'm a direct to consumer pitcher, and I've raised about $1.5 million in my 13 years. So I've done it quite a bit. I've been mildly successful. And yeah, I would love to open it up to any questions if you guys have it at all. And I just thank you so much for your time and hope you learned something.
All right. So, Allie, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We all know that pitching can be extremely, extremely nerve-wracking. I mean, it's essentially one of the biggest decisions that you're making. You know, you have these people who kind of are helping to decide how quickly you can grow and decisions that you can make within your company. So it's so easy, like you said, to completely forget everything that you
Yes.
that you rehearsed in the mirror to yourself. So can you talk a little bit more about when you are up on that platform and you are in front of these investors and everything goes blank?
Yep.
How do you still look confident? Or sometimes it happens in the middle.
Yep.
How do you still evoke confidence? How do you recover from that and still make sure that these investors are confident that you know what you're doing?
Yeah. So I think it starts with how you're practicing the pitch. I usually steer people away from rehearsing line by line, because as soon as one line gets forgotten or the sequence breaks, usually people break down, and then they go back and they get flustered, and then they look like, oh my gosh, fumble, fumble, fumble. So if you're one of those people that must rehearse line by line, like, you know, every single line of your pitches, this is what I'm going to say, this is what I'm going to say next, and if you screw that up, you do look like you've dropped the football, right? You do look like you fumbled. So I would say start with trying not to practice line by line. If you must, then have your cell phone with you and have it up on your notes, the line by line stuff that you practice, and you can just quickly say, you know what, sorry, I got off track. Let me look at my notes really quickly. If you have a backup like that and have it in your notes in your cell phone, nobody will skip a beat. They'll be like, okay, But so I would strongly discourage not going verbatim, like rehearsing line by line, because if you get lost, you're going to be in no man's land. I would say if you get screwed up in the middle or the beginning of the presentation, take a second, take a deep breath, and go, I know this product. Tell them about your product. Doesn't matter if you have to totally go off the cuff, right? But just say, you know what? I'm going to tell you about sheets. I'm going to tell you about why I sleep better at night because of sheets. At the end of the day, if you are an entrepreneur and you have started a company or a product or whatever, you're already passionate about your product. You're already passionate about your service, and you probably already know the ins and outs of every single aspect of it. So you need to trust yourself and rely on your memory to be like, all right, I know about this. I could sell a ketchup popsicle to an Eskimo in white gloves, right? Like, I know I can tell you about this because I live and breathe it every day. So you just have to take a step back, take a breath, and say, all right, if I can't remember anything about the pitch, screw the slides, forget it. I'm just going to talk to you about what I know. And people will respect the hell out of that.
Mm-hmm. So in the world of technology,
Mm-hmm.
what would be some of your top tips for remaining memorable when technology fails you? Because everyone intakes information differently. So some people are listening more to what you have to say. Some people are going to remember your humor. Some people are going to remember what they see in your presentation. So when technology fails you, what are some of your top tips on remaining memorable?
All right. So, first thing, with technology and your slides, be very, very brief. One of my favorite presentations is from Brian Brackeen. He just did the pitch or the announcement at the render competition, and he had like 6 slides. And the first one was like, "Hey, I'm Brian." Then he did like 3 slides of just his face, and it said, don't watch the slides, watch my face. And then he did it again. He's like, all right, next slide. It was the exact same thing. He said, gotcha, don't watch the slides, watch my face. And then he went into something else, and then 2 slides later he showed the exact same slide, and I laughed so hard. But he conditioned me within those like 5 slides. I shouldn't be looking up there, I should be watching you, right? So there's one piece. You can be really memorable with your slide by being funny and reminding the person, like, I would love for you to read my slides after we chat, but watch me, kind of thing. The other thing is in your recovery. So if technology breaks down and your PowerPoint is done, you could make a joke out of it and be like, COVID got me again, or the technology gods are just not with me today. I'd love to just, talk to you from the heart and tell you more about it so that we don't waste this time together. So I think it's a lot in your recovery, and it's just not being afraid to admit that you are human and that sometimes things happen, because it happens more often than not. The other day, Adventure Connectors, the slides were actually the wrong slides. I was emceeing the event, and they had slides from last March, and I thankfully had printed out my slides, so I knew what order I was supposed to be going in. I had a backup ready for me, but when that happened, I'm like looking and I'm going, you know what? I'm just going to go off the cuff here because these slides are not correct. And I was really honest with them. I was like, slides aren't correct. I'd rather just tell you about what we're going to do today. And so I basically went with that route, and everybody was fine. It ended up fine. But I was like, you know what? Things happen. Technology breaks down. And then we offered an apology and we just moved on with the show, because I wanted to make sure that I could be respectful of everybody's time and keep them on track. But I'd say those are my top like 3 tips in dealing with being memorable if technology breaks down. And like even today, I printed these out just so that I could make sure that if I had a technology breakdown, if I wasn't able to share my screen, that I could at least speak to it. And that way I knew I would stay on track and deliver the information that I wanted to. So, and you can always have your phone handy. I mean, in today's day and age, it's no big deal to have your phone out and say, you know what, let me quickly look at my notes. I want to make sure I double check this, or, something like that.
So all the pitches work a little bit differently depending on if it's a larger pitch competition, a smaller pitch competition, things like that. So for especially locally, when you
Mhm.
have those like 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to convince somebody to give you what you need, what are your top tips for making sure that you do that effectively, efficiently, and what is like the core to what you should be presenting so that they get all the information that they need to make sure that like you're the person that they want to invest in.
Yeah. So, I've been the judge for like the vote awards, for some of the render stuff, for the venture sharks. And I will tell you what, in those quick pitches, my preference as a judge is to not have slides at all to look at. I'd rather you just talk to me. Um, a lot of people are going to require that or like ask for a supplement. But my preference as a judge is for you to just talk to me and tell me about what it is you're selling. So if you do have to go with slides, I would say in a 3 to 5 minute pitch, you maybe want half of the normal numbers. So instead of 10 slides, I would say you do 5 and you do your quick sale. Here's who I am. So sorry, I was trying to find my thumb on the screen. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm selling. Here's why you should buy it from me. Here's why it makes financial sense and what your ask is. So here's me in a really brief minute. And you can do that in 3 to 5 minutes. I really believe so. Because if you're getting into the weeds about a very, very complicated cryptocurrency or something like that, the audience, they don't want 5 minutes of, well, if you go on the blockchain and you do this and this and this, and you go through the back end and Ethereum is worth this right now, blah, 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 blah. People are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I have to listen to this for 5 minutes. So they'd rather know who you are, what it is you're selling, why you're good at it. Oh, Allie sells sheets to sweaty people because she just told me she sweats. Perfect. She's the perfect person to sell this. And I sell them for 109. I make a 60% profit margin. My target audience is huge. And I'm asking you for an investment of $50,000. You can get that done so quickly by not getting into the weeds. I could go through all my patents and all my design and all that stuff, but no one in the audience is going to be as excited about that as you are. Like,
Mhm.
I can nerd out about stitching all day long, but the person that's investing in me doesn't give two shits about how many stitches per inch we have on our sheets. So the same goes with tech companies or like explaining all your secret sauce. You really don't have to waste time doing that until you're really, really at that next stage. If the investor even asks for that stuff, they know that you know it, and they don't need to understand it from like the broad standpoint. So um, who you are, what you're selling, why you're the best at it, why does it make financial sense, and then what you're asked. I think in a couple of slides or no slides at all is probably the best quick pitch.
So keeping it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. It's
hmm
the best cliche in entrepreneurism ever.
hmm So, okay, in this virtual day and age, especially as we're living in a new normal, but also as you grow, you start pitching to just these larger groups who may not be local.
Mhm.
So, what are your tips for pitching virtually effectively?
Yeah, this is getting tougher because
Mm,
Louisville is fantastic. Our entrepreneur or our venture community is good, but it's full of angels. But we've got a lot of great startup ideas coming out of Louisville right now that require larger capital infusions. And so this is no slight to Louisville. You have to look outside of the city. You need to look to Boston. You need to look to Silicon Valley, even though it's becoming a little bit dated. Because all that money is going straight to Elon right now. So you need to look to Chicago, the Midwest. There's a lot of capital in the Midwest. And it goes back to understanding their investment culture. So that one slide I did about knowing your audience and like becoming their stalker, I pitched to a couple groups in Chicago and Indianapolis, and I definitely changed my tune on what it is I know they like. Louisvillians like a good hometown feel. The Chicago and Midwestern, like real quick people, they wanted to know financials real quick because their learning curve is so much shorter and their attention span is so much shorter because they're hearing thousands of pitches a week. So they wanted to hear the couple of buzzwords like, what do you do? Consumer product space, hit those buzzwords really, really fast. Consumer product space, D2C, omni channel, raising this. Here's what it's for. Here's what it's going to do to my business and how it's going to make you money. So, like understanding that those larger networks of capital, so in the larger cities, you need to hit the buzzwords faster. But you can still be your sweet, like Southern self. So I'm from St. Louis, but when I came to Kentucky, I got the Southern charm. Like I was like, overwhelmed by people being so kind and sweet and how's your family and what high school did you go to and all that. And so you can still have some of that, but you just got to go through it a little bit quicker and then get to those big city buzzwords because they just don't have a lot of time to listen to the sweet nothings that you might have to whisper to a Louisville entrepreneur or a Louisville investor.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we've also been having some virtual pitches here. So that was definitely something that I wanted to make sure that we touched on a little bit
Yeah.
during this session. But we are getting close to the end of our time. That was awesome. I learned a lot too myself. I mean, I haven't had to pitch yet, but
Day's coming, Kiana.
listen, it's coming, and I've watched so many this last year, and I think that the more that you practice, the more that you continue to learn, the better you're going to get at it. So, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for that, Allie. Make sure that if you have any questions, you email her. Her email is scrolling at the bottom of the screen if you can see, but it's Allie@wickedsheets.com. Also, it's the holiday season, so shop with her.
Yeah.
What's your website?
It's wickedsheets.com.
Okay, wickedsheets.com. So everybody in the family should get a great set of bed sheets for Christmas or whatever holiday that you celebrate. And make sure that if you want to know when we're going to be doing more things like this, more workshops, pitch practices, all the other events that's happening around the city, that you check out amplifylouisville.com and our events tabs to keep up with what's happening. And we wish everyone a happy holiday, and we look forward to doing it again. Thank you, Allie.
Thanks, guys. Happy holidays.